Dear students, here Dr. Sivagama Sundari, Assistant Professor, Department of Life Sciences from Kristu Jayanti College. So this video tells you about what is plant communities and how does a plant community develop in a bare area or the succession takes place. So moving on to the development of plant community. The plant community development may takes place directly in a bare area or else replacement of one distracted vegetation community in a given habitat by the other vegetation. We call that as biotic succession. So this kind of process happen is directional and sequential process. Change of either a complete plant community or a group of patches alone will go for this biotic succession. So that we call it as seri. Succession of this process only complete when the succession of vegetation community after passing through different phases of changes culminates into equilibrium. Until it reaches the equilibrium, these changes will keep on going. Succession is characterized by maximum growth and development of plant. Once we tell the succession is completely 100% done, so when you go and check the plant community, that time it was a maximum growth and the development of the plant will be achieved. So thus the vegetation community developed at the end of the succession, we usually call it as climax vegetation. After that, no more vegetation. That means not much changes happen. But when you check the population, it will be with full of maximum growth of different stages. Tree, herbs, shrub, grasses, lianas, woody climbers and all will be there. So this diagrammatic representation will give an idea about how a bare space is slowly colonized by the biotic succession. At final thing, we call it as the climax community. This is how the succession takes place over a period of time. It is directional, unidirectional and sequential process. So we can divide the biotic succession into two. One is primary biotic succession, which means developmental sequence of plant vegetation in those bare areas when there were no vegetation and animals earlier. It was not reported any vegetation or any cattles over a long period of time in that area. If the succession start, we call it that as primary biotic succession. Example, newly emerged sea floor, solidified basaltic surfaces due to recent lava flows, exposed lake bed due to drying of air. So these are the few example of primary biotic succession. The initial sites for the primary successional development of vegetation may be of various type having varying environmental condition as referred to above, but for convenience such site is being selected by the plant community which of bare rock surface and does not have any earlier vegetation. So it was accidentally chosen by those vegetation in a bare area. We call it as primary biotic succession. Moving on to the second type, this is the example of the primary biotic succession. This is how it takes place in a bare area where there were no vegetation and animals are reported. Secondary biotic succession. So secondary biotic succession refers to the developmental sequences of vegetation in those areas which had vegetation cover earlier but now have been rendered nude or bare due to destruction of vegetation. So that kind of colonization after the vegetation of bare area, we call it as secondary biotic succession. It may be pointed out that such disturbed ecosystem or habitats still contain mature soils and some original vegetation, and therefore the initial stage or series of secondary succession of plant community is quite different from the initial stage. So the total time required for the development of the climax community in the secondary succession is much less than the time taken for the development of the primary succession, because primary succession happens in the bare area, whereas in the secondary succession after destruction of the vegetation because of the mature soil. This is how the secondary succession happened. This is the best example. The first picture where it was a vegetation, it was destructed by the forest fire, and after that secondary succession immediately start and it will attain the climax community very soon compared to the primary succession. So moving on to the process of ecological succession, how the process takes place. The ecological succession is a complex process and it may take thousands of years. So Frederick Clemens in 1960 for the first time proposed the sequential phases of an ecological succession. So the process of succession, either it is primary or secondary, through a series of sequential steps it happens. So first one is nudation. So nudation is the development of bare area without any life form. So this is the first step in the ecological succession. Nudation may causes due to topographic related causes like soil erosion, sand deposit, landslide, and climatic disturbances also due to glaciers, dry period and storm. Biotic also like forest destruction, agriculture and other anthropogenic activity also reported as a nudation. So this is a nudation, a bare area formed by landslide. Moving on to the second process, after nudation, invasion takes place, is the successful establishment of a species in the bare area. Second step in the ecological succession. So this happens by migration. So seeds, spores and propagules of the plant species reaches to the bare area by migration through air or water medium. Then excess is the process of successful establishment of a species in the bare area where the propagules reach the new area due to migration, will start germinate and grow and reproduce. And finally aggregation, the individual of a species increase their number based on the nutrient availability of the soil and they stay close to each other until it attains the climax community. That is the second step of invasion. This is that. Slowly it will attain the invasion in the bare area. Then competition and co-action, like that other propagules also will be start growing. So that enables each species go for competition for food, sunlight, humidity, and co-action will be there with the abiotic components. So that is the third step. Then fourth one, reaction, is the most important stage in the ecological succession. Modification of the environment like biotic and abiotic components through the influence of living organism present on it. So there will be a reaction happens in the change in soil, water, light and temperature of the area. So various community contributing seri are called seral community. So such community will be quickly replaced by the other community. The whole sequence of communities that replace one another in a given area, we call it as seri. So this is how slowly the invasion and finally competition, co-action, reaction happen. They colonize successfully in the bare area. Then moving on to the stabilization, the climax community, last stage in the ecological succession. The final or terminal community becomes more or less stabilized for longer period of time. This community can maintain its equilibrium with the climate of the area. The final community, we usually call it as climax community. Climax community is not immediately replaced by other community. So it is determined by the climate of the region. So that is the final climax of the development of the plant succession in a bare area. Example, forest, grassland ecosystem, coral reef ecosystem and all. So this is how the stabilization and the climates of the development of the plant community look like. So with this we come to the end of this video. Hope you people can aware about what is plant community, what are the different kinds of succession based on the plant colonization in a bare area and how the succession stages happens. Thank you.